Friends, we're all back together for the next episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Welcome.
My name is Jessie. I am a mother of a type 1 diabetic. She was 4 years old. It was the day after Halloween. And she is 9, and she's doing great.
Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. I know this is going to sound crazy, but Blue Circle Health is a nonprofit that's offering a totally free virtual type 1 diabetes clinical care, education, and support program for adults 18 and up. You heard me right. Free. No strings attached. Just free. Currently, if you live in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, or Missouri, you're eligible for Blue Circle Health right now, but they are adding states quickly in 2025. So make sure to follow them at Blue Circle Health on social media and make yourself familiar with bluecirclehealth.org. Blue Circle Health is free. It is without cost. There are no strings attached. I am not hiding anything from you. bluecirclehealth.org. You know why they had to buy an ad? No one believes it's free. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense 365, the 1-year wear CGM. That's one insertion a year. That's it. And here's a little bonus for you. How about there's no limit on how many friends and family you can share your data with the Eversense Now app. No limits. Eversense. Friends, Touched by Type 1's walk is coming up quickly on March 8th. That's a Saturday at Lake Eola Park in Orlando, Florida. Go now to Touched by Type 1 to sign up and register. It's completely free. You're going to have a wonderful time. touchedbytype1.org. Go to the programs tab. Click on Steps to a Cure.
Hello, my name is Jessie, and I am a mother of a type 1 diabetic.
Well, I have children who grew up with Nickelodeon and things like that. So I'm going to say, hey, Jessie. And then we're going to move on. Do you know that TV show?
I think you emailed me that one time. The first time I reached out to you when my daughter was first diagnosed, you were like, I'm going to respond to you, even though I get so many emails. I'm going to respond to you because of your name. And it just hit me a certain way today.
It made me think of that silly TV show on the Disney Channel. Yeah. I wonder what happened to that girl. Let's not go down that rabbit hole just now. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your family.
I have 4 children. My type 1 diabetic is number 2 of 4. I've got bookend boy. So I got boy, girl, boy. We have a ginormous 135-pound German Shepherd dog who hopefully will not bark while I'm doing this podcast.
I'm sure he'll be fine. How old was your daughter when she was diagnosed?
She was 4 years old. It was the day after Halloween.
Oh, and how old is she now?
She is 9, and she's doing great.
5 years ago on All Saints Day.
Her diaversary falls on the same day that my dad died.
Oh,
so,
you know, yeah. I only knew it was All Saints Day because it's my father's birthday, and he was not a saint. So it stuck in my head. Oh, that's crazy. Your father died on the day my father was born?
Yes, he did. 2 years after Charlie was diagnosed.
Oh, not long ago.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Feels like quite a while now.
You know, I'm going to take a weird turn and ask you a question. It's only a couple of years ago, but it feels like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. At first, it felt like time was moving really slow when he died, but a lot of life happens in a short amount of time. And that's something that I'm realizing as I get older, that each year just seems to fly by, which makes time, I don't know. Time has been very confusing for me because I feel like Charlie's been diagnosed. Well, it's been most of her life. You know, she doesn't even remember not being diabetic at this point.
Yeah.
But that's how it feels. I feel like my dad has been gone for so long.
Yeah. Do you think that's a little because your life is so busy? Like, do you think if your life wasn't so fast, you'd have maybe more time to think about that?
Yes, definitely, for sure. And I'm also a stuffer. So I just try to stuff all those feelings down and not deal with them. And life is incredibly busy with 4 kids.
First you said stuffer, and I thought, is that like a furry? What is she saying? Does she go to a convention dressed as something? No. You don't let your feelings out?
Correct.
Are we Irish, English, Catholic? What are we?
I'm a Christian, but I have a hard time I don't want to deal with the emotions of my dad's death. So I just step them down instead. My husband also lost his dad a year before my dad died. He has watched, his memorial video countless times. We can't even count. We watch it all, especially every year we watch it on his death anniversary. I made my dad's memorial video, and I still have only watched it the one time.
Two different theories about how to handle this. You'd think your husband's trying to keep his father's memory alive, or do you think he's actually that's what he's doing?
Yes.
It's interesting that you don't want to talk about this, and it's the first thing I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
I apologize.
It's all good.
Do you want me to pivot, or you're okay?
Let's pivot away from my dad.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to.
Oddly, he earlier, at one point in his life, he was a type 2 diabetic. So that's interesting. That's a little notation. And at that point, I didn't understand truly what that even meant.
At one point in his life, did he decide to quit? Or what do you mean at one point?
No, he was able to reverse type 2 diabetes.
Did he diet and exercise his way out of the diagnosis?
He did, yeah.
Wow, good for him. So did he ever use insulin?
No, he never used insulin.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to tell you this last bit so that everyone can figure out that I wasn't just being morbid, but today's August 15th, which I don't usually timestamp these, but my father-in-law passed away on August 3rd, which was my wife and I's wedding anniversary.
Oh.
And the day that we left on the first family vacation we took in 6 years. We were on an airplane when my father-in-law passed away. And it was terrible. And we couldn't turn back or, cancel a trip. We had other people with us, et cetera. And, my wife's family was lovely about, preparing everything and, without us there and, to help. And then we got home and had 24 hours to get ready to go to his funeral, which got scheduled by the church on my mother's birthday, who just passed away recently. And then you get on and you're like, said that. And I was like, oh, man, maybe we're supposed to talk about this. But
yeah,
we're not. We're moving on.
But I don't want to talk about it.
Except Jessie ain't up for this crap. Because of reasons that she doesn't want to talk about on a podcast. Although I am going to ask you one question and then I'm going to leave you alone on it. Do you go to therapy?
I do not go to therapy, but it probably would be good to unpack that. But I'm a little bit afraid of unpacking. I don't really want to unpack it all. There's a lot.
Jessie's like, if it ain't broke, too bad. Don't fix it.
Yep. Let's just leave it alone. Feel like I'm coping okay.
I haven't shot anybody, Scott. I've never carjacked anyone. I don't know what you want from me. I'm doing great.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
You don't randomly yell at people for no reason or anything like that?
Just my kids.
Oh, well, they deserve it for being born. Now, ruining your life. So tell me a little bit about your daughter's diagnosis. How did it come on? How did you realize what was going on? When you think of a CGM and all the good that it brings in your life, is the first thing you think about, I love that I have to change it all the time? I love the warm-up period every time I have to change it. I love that when I bump into a door frame, sometimes it gets ripped off. I love that the adhesive kind of gets mushy sometimes when I sweat and falls off. No, these are not the things that you love about a CGM. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense 365, the only CGM that you only have to put on once a year, and the only CGM that won't give you any of those problems. The Eversense 365 is the only one-year CGM designed to minimize device frustration. It has exceptional accuracy for 1 year with almost no false alarms from compression lows while you're sleeping. You can manage your diabetes instead of your CGM with the Eversense 365. Learn more and get started today at eversensecgm.com/juicebox. 1 year, one CGM.
So I'm one of 5. And my brother, who's closest in age to me, he is a type 1 diabetic and he was diagnosed at 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I had known the signs and symptoms of type 1 diabetes. I was not unaware of them. I just remember that Charlie had just started preschool and it was right around Halloween. And she was also in this running club and she started drinking so much water. She was normally not a big water drinker, but she was chugging water. I'm talking refilling her water bottle, 7 times a day. And she was going to the bathroom a lot. Charlie also was like complaining that her legs were always hurting and she was getting tired when she didn't need to be tired. She barely did anything. And she, at 4 years old, you have a ton of energy. Yeah, she started showing those signs. I remember it was a Sunday because I took her to this running club and she drank so much water at this running club and she was complaining and she did not want to run, which was abnormal for her. And took her to school the next day. And I noticed that her teacher had told me that she had drank a lot of water. And then when she got home, she had refilled her water bottle a ton of times. And then she took a nap, which was also abnormal for her.
Yeah.
And she ended up wetting the bed. And Charlie had, she had potty trained herself before she was 2 years old. I didn't have to do anything. She just one day took off her diaper, put it in the trash and said, I pee-pee in the potty now.
Boom.
And that was it.
And you were like, I'm the best parent ever.
No, I was like, wow, she is brilliant.
Finally, we get a smart one. That other one, we're going to ignore him now. She really just made a proclamation?
Yeah, she took her diaper off. She threw it right in the trash can and said, I pee-pee in the potty now, mama.
That's awesome.
And that was it. I didn't have to do anything. It was the easiest potty training ever because she did it herself. Yeah. And she never wet the bed ever. She just went straight into panties, never wet the bed. So when she wet the bed during a nap in the afternoon, it was confusing. It was not right. So like I said, this started on like a Sunday and Halloween was on Thursday. And I remember on Thursday, we maybe went to the bathroom and then I put her in her unicorn, riding a unicorn. She was a ballerina that rode a unicorn. So I put her in this costume and I inflated it right after she went to the bathroom and we went 3 houses up the street and she said, I got to go pee pee. And so I knocked on the neighbor's door. She said, trick or treat. And then I said, can we use your bathroom? And she went to the bathroom and then she was complaining, I'm so thirsty. So they gave her a water bottle and she chugged a water bottle. And we went just a few more houses, didn't even make it to the end of our block before she said,
I gotta go to the bathroom.
I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I walked her back down. She sat in the middle of our cul-de-sac with her dad, who was passing out candy at like we had a fire pit.
Yeah.
And she sat there. She drank hot chocolate and quite a few pieces of candy and did not look well. At that point, I remember it hit me right then and there. And I shot a text message to my brother and I said, hey, this is what I've been noticing since Sunday. All the water drinking, the wetting, the excessive bathroom. And this is what just happened right now. Tell me that that I'm crazy and my daughter's not type 1 diabetic. And he said, I'm going to tell you, I think your daughter's type 1 diabetic. And I was, oh my gosh, It was so hard.
Not enough Kit Kats in the world to fix that.
I was like, no, she's not. So I tell my husband about it and I told him, okay, listen, we didn't have a meter at our house or anything like that. So I wouldn't have been able to test her blood sugar.
Sure.
I said, okay, in the morning, I'm going to take her to the doctor. And he said, okay, you do what you think is best. And then in the morning we were sitting together and she seemed okay. So I said, okay, I'm not going to take her to the doctor. And my husband said, okay, you know what's best. You do what you think. And then 15 minutes later, I picked up the phone and I called our pediatrician and I said, hey, I'm going to bring my daughter in. I think she's type 1 diabetic.
Also, a lot of people are telling me I know best, but can I be honest with you? Yeah. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so I think my husband doesn't mean that. I think he's just trying to stay out of it.
Yeah, mine was just like, hey, you're the mom, you make the decision. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, my decision was, I'm going to take her to the doctor. I just can't sit on this. So took her in, tested her blood sugar. And I remember the meter said high. She walked back in and she said, oh, that's weird. It says high. It must be broken.
Yeah.
That's what the nurse said.
I thought it was saying hello to me. I thought it was saying hello to me, Jessie. Yeah. I remember as clear as a bell saying to my wife, oh my God, this is so nice. It says hello to you before it gives you the number. It's not adorable.
Yeah. I'm like, the doctor heard her say that though. The pediatrician was walking by our room and he heard her say that and he walked in, shut the door behind him. And he said, that's not what that means.
Yeah. Also, we're letting her go, but that's not for this conversation.
Right. So they were super kind, and they just said, hey, your daughter's type 1 diabetic. We're going to need you to drive straight over to the children's hospital, and we're going to call ahead and let them know you're coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not say a word, Scott. I didn't say a word. I broke down in tears. I scooped my daughter up. I didn't even get a checkout sheet. I scooped her up and ran out of that doctor's office, put her in the car. First person I called as I'm driving home was my brother, and I'm crying my eyes out. And I told him what they just told me. And he's like, hey, you got to pull over. You're going to get in a car accident. You are hysterical. And I'm panicking, thinking, no, she's going to die. Like, if I don't get her to the hospital, she's going to die. And he's like, she's not going to die, but I need you to, he's like, did you call your husband? And I'm like, no, I called you.
He told me I know best.
Yeah. So I ended up, he's like, okay, I want you to pull over. I want you to call him. I want you to tell him what's going on so he can, take work the rest of the day off and drive you there because you're nuts.
Yeah.
And
they're getting some real feedback from your brother. He's like, the stuffing thing, that's not your only thing. So stop for a second.
Yeah. He's like, listen, lady, you're going to have a bigger problem if you don't pull your car over.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that is the story of Charlie's diagnosis.
Wow.
She was, I noticed symptoms on Sunday, and Friday she was diagnosed. So it was really, really quick. She must have been maybe, looking back and looking at her A1C when she was diagnosed, she maybe had type 1 for a couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah. Hindsight, you can figure it out a little easier, obviously. You start seeing more signs that you didn't see at first.
Yeah. She had like a cold prior to that as well.
It's pretty well done on your part. I don't, it's not nearly the worst one I've ever heard.
Yeah. I mean, when I did get her to the hospital, and they did, they have meters that don't say hello to you. So her blood sugar was 568.
Okay. How long did they keep you, or did they not?
2 days.
2 days.
2 days. And we had to attend some classes, could go home, and they gave us a bag of stuff and like 2 insulin pens and said, best of luck to you. The first night that I was in the hospital with her, because we had another kid at that time. So my husband went home and I stayed with her. So I remember I came across your Facebook page.
Okay.
I just started typing in Facebook in the search. I just started typing in things. And then I was in different diabetes things, Georgia diabetes groups, things like that. One person had mentioned on their Juicebox podcast. And so boom, I found it right away. My brother was super sweet. He overnighted a Dexcom transmitter and a G6 to us, so that when we were released, we had one, because I had asked the endocrinologist for one. And he said, no, he wouldn't give me one.
How come? Did he say why?
He did not. He just said they want us to get familiar with accurate readings. And I thought, this guy's absolutely nuts. And that was the beginning start of me. I don't trust these doctors to make decisions anymore. As soon as he told me no, my brother overnighted us one. And then I realized, hey, I can log on to their website and request a Dexcom. And that's what I did. And then they contacted me. Dexcom contacted me. I gave them my insurance information. And then I was able to, they needed a prescription, obviously. And I switched who I wanted the endocrinologist to be.
And that was that. Nice and easy.
And that was it.
Can I have a Dexcom, please? No. I'm going to start advocating for people to say, douchebag says what? After that happens.
Yeah. I know. And that's when I realized that this is what this is. This is the ball game that they want to play. They just, I don't know why they would say no, but I realized I've got to take this into my own hands. Why would they not want us to be able to have a Dexcom? That gives us so much information and just peace of mind as a parent with a child,
I mean, I guess you can go round and round on this point, and I could do it again, but I get both sides of the argument. Like, hey, just, do it with a meter at first so you can figure it out, but I don't know what it is you figure out, because I look back on my own life and I couldn't figure out anything with just a meter. It wasn't until I got a CGM that I was like, oh, I see patterns, and cause and effect, and oh my gosh, like I can make changes, like, like that kind of thing. So like, is it just an old thing people say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is it left over from when insulin pumps came and people,
I really,
you know what I mean?
I really do feel like it depends on what so like, for example, that endocrinologist that told me no was an older endocrinologist. He's not, up with the technology and probably didn't trust it, right? That's why he said no. And that's what I found. Even when I switched endocrinology offices altogether, the first endocrinologist that I saw at this new office, I asked him for a pump right away.
Mm-hmm.
And he said no. He said, I want her to be diagnosed for at least a year. I want you to get familiar with giving injections for a year. And I thought, why? Why would you put her through that for a year?
If there's two ideas I have, one is I'm an old guy and I don't know how to use this newfangled thing. And if you're using it, you're going to ask me about it. And then what am I going to say?
Yeah.
I'll get exposed. Or really, maybe they really do feel like, well, what are you going to do if a pump, if your pump breaks or whatever? And I mean, my answer to that.
And I understand that.
I don't disagree that you should understand how to manually take care of your diabetes. I'm not minimizing that at all. But a year? Where'd you come up with a year? What if I get it figured out in 6 weeks?
I switched. I was like, all right, I'm done with this guy. So switched to a different endo in that office, and she was much younger, and I said, we want to get on an insulin pump. And this was, Charlie had been diagnosed, I mean, maybe 3 months at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And her A1C was already 6.0.
Yeah.
So she was like, I feel like you've got the hang of this, and I feel like we could get you on an insulin pump.
Right. I mean, I think that's the bigger point, is like, stop lumping me in with everyone else. Like, maybe I will figure it out quicker, just because maybe your average is a year. And by the way, it's not even, some people don't ever figure it out. They just eventually go, oh, you're not figuring it out. I'll give you a pump and see if this helps.
Right. And I remember just being like, I'm giving this little girl 14 plus injections a day because I wanted her in such a tight range. Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm trying to dial this in here, and I'm having to give her all these injections. Why not just give her a pump where I can do these small increments to get her where she needs to be?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I agree. I would if knowing what I know now, I would leave with a pump and a CGM.
Yes.
Right away.
Yeah.
Even knowing that if I put myself in that position, I wouldn't completely understand what I was doing, I would still rather start there. That's my opinion. So,
yeah.
It's funny while you're talking about this, I have this note that somebody sent me recently rattling around in my head. It was very well intended and kind. And the person said, there was somebody on a recent episode, they really gave it hard to their doctor's office. And I think this person works in medicine and people are trying. And I'm like, well, you're trying. And that's why it strikes you that way. You don't know that the people they're dealing with are trying. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's so funny. If you ask me, do you think your podcast beats up on the medical community? I'd say absolutely not. Like, I just think people are telling their stories. And if that's what their story is, then you know what I mean? Like, that's not beating up on somebody. It's reporting what happened to them. So
right.
It's not my fault that so many people have that story,
Correct. Yeah. And I feel like that's the norm. A lot of people have the same story, and it's unfortunate.
I do agree that people don't jump on podcasts to say positive stuff all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't jump up on Facebook to say how well everything's going.
Yeah. I will say I love our endocrinologist now. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing with her is she trusts me to manage and takes everything I say to heart. And so we work more as a team. Yeah. Instead of feeling like we're working against each other.
Got to be like that. It's really the only way it works well. So.
And type 1 is so personal, Yeah. So the way that I manage my daughter's type 1 diabetes is not going to be the same as another child. It looks differently.
I remember when I put the Pro Tip series out originally, and I got this note from somebody that says, like, everybody doesn't do what you do. And I was like, oh, I didn't think everybody did.
Yeah. That's not why I put it out there.
Yeah. I thought, oh gosh, like, do you think I'm saying to you, this is the exact way to do this? I was like, this is what I'm doing. Here's my outcomes. Take some of it, all of it, or none of it. I don't care.
See what works for you. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope some of it helps you. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, like, I mean, I'm not coming to your house. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, we should all be learning from each other. I mean, I just spoke with one of my friends this morning whose son is type 1. And, oh, wait, no, that was yesterday when I tried to hop on your podcast yesterday.
Oh, we're definitely going to talk about that, Jessie, at some point. Hold on.
I was late to it because I was actually trying to help my girlfriend out. Her son had ketones and I was just trying to walk her through some steps,
Yeah.
So I was dealing with diabetes and then I thought that I missed my appointment.
You want to do this now? I had a 9 a.m. recording yesterday and then I had an 11 a.m. recording. So in between, I ate 2 eggs in a wrap and I was getting up to my computer. Like, I was excited. I was like a couple of minutes early for my 11 a.m. Like, look at me go. And I open up my email to look at that before I jump on. And there was a person like frantically emailing me. It felt like I've been on this call for 25 minutes. I don't know what's wrong or where you are. And I'm looking at the name and it's not the name of the person who I'm recording with at 11 o'clock. I don't understand what's happening. And, I opened up the application to talk to the person at 11 because I got to be honest with you. I was just going to respond back to your email and say, I don't know what you're talking about. But and I jump on and then there's 2 people coming into the Zoom and I'm like, what the hell's happening? And I let you both in. And because a handful of times in my life, I'll set up a recording with someone. And by the way, no one do this to me because I really don't like it. You'll say like, oh, I want to come on and talk about this. And then you'll surprise me with a third person. And you're like, I brought my mom on. I thought she'd be interesting. And I'm like, that doesn't sound as good. Now I got to split up the conversation between 2 people. Like, I would have preferred to know about this before I was going to do it. But people will spring it on me sometimes. But the person I recorded with yesterday at 11, Sam, like, I know her. Like, I know her. Like, she works for Touched by Type 1 or volunteers for Touched by Type 1. And I've known her for like a decade. I'm like, she would not do that to me. But I thought, well, maybe she did. So like, I'm like, okay, hey, Jessica, what's up? And I'm like trying to figure out, I'm like, Sam, do you know Jessica? And she goes, no, I have no idea who this is. And I was like, I'm like, wait a minute, Jessica, who the hell are you? And then we looked and realized you were 24 hours early for your recording.
Yeah. And I thought I was late. So I actually did well. I'm proud of myself.
And then this morning, by the way, you were like 2 minutes late. And I thought, oh, she's getting back at me.
No, I told you life is so crazy. There's too many people's schedules to manage. And then at the same time, I'm trying to manage,
diabetes.
Just I'm trying to manage diabetes. I'm helping other people with their diabetes and
trying to get that German Shepherd not to kill you. That thing sounds like it's huge.
Oh, he is a sweet boy. But yeah, if you were coming to my door, you'd think, I'm glad there's a door between us.
So in your notes to me about coming on, I love, you have 2 topics in here. I love both of them. I want to go through both of them.
Yeah.
Trying to strike a balance between keeping your daughter's care good, giving her some autonomy, but not overwhelming her. Mm-hmm. I think this is, after you learn about how insulin works and how all these gadgets work and what the hell the smoggy effect is, and once you've got all that down, I feel like this ends up being the long time goal. I almost said burden, but I don't mean burden, but like responsibility of a person raising a small child with type 1. Like, I want her to be healthy now. I want them to understand this. I don't want to overwhelm them. Can you talk about that with me?
Yeah. So actually, that's been my goal with her from the beginning of her diagnosis. It was, I want her to understand everything, right? But as a child, there's only so much you can take on. And I don't want her to bear the weight of type 1 diabetes herself. Mm-hmm. I want her to understand, like, I'm always going to be there, but ultimately I'm raising a person who's going to be an adult with type 1 diabetes.
Right.
So when she becomes a certain age, she's going to have to fly the nest, right? Mm-hmm. And so she's going to have to understand, okay, what do I do here? My mom is not doing it for me. I don't ever want her to. So I'm trying to give her bits and pieces as we go. And my biggest thing is, what is too much for her? Because everyone always tells me, your daughter is so responsible. She manages her type 1 diabetes so well. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, that's me. But
She's 9, but okay.
Yeah, she's 9, but I am. So I've been giving her bits and pieces. Last year was her very first year at school managing her diabetes without the nurse. I was done with the nurse. Love them, and I'm not coming on to hate on our nurse. But there's only so much that they can do because there's protocols in place to protect their jobs.
Jesse, I'm going to stop you. That love them sounded very Southern and reminiscent of "Oh, bless your heart."
I am in the South.
Okay. All right. I heard a lot in those 2 words, but go ahead.
I do. I did love my nurse, but we got in fights probably 3 to 4 times a week. I don't know. Arguments, not fights.
3 times a week. I thought you were going to say 3 times. I have something stuck in my head because it came up online the other day. And it's your secondary thing, but you kind of like you're blending the 2 ideas together, so I don't feel weird blending them together. Yeah. I am fascinated when a nurse reaches out to a healthcare team without your okay and starts talking to the doctor about your kid's medical stuff.
Oh, I've heard of that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened to me once. Well, it happened to my daughter once. I did not react well to it. Like, for all my, like, be calm, don't do stuff, like, I called the nurse's office and I was like, did you call my daughter's endocrinologist? And she goes, yeah. And she started talking and I went, do not ever fucking do that again. And she goes, what? And I was like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? I was like, you're calling my kid's doctor? Who are you? You're not me. You're not my wife. You're not my kid. You're a stranger. You're a lady who has a job at the high school. You don't have anything to do with my daughter. I said, Jessie, I want to be clear. I think I said fuck at her about 4 times in a 30-second call. And when I was done talking and she started talking, I said, I don't give a shit what you're going to say. I'm done now. Don't do that again. And I hung up the phone. Like, so it put me, I was like, what in God's name do you think you're doing? Like, really, I handled it very poorly. I want to be clear about that first.
There was somebody on one of your podcasts recently who shared, I feel like that you interviewed that had a similar situation.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
I specifically put in our medical management plan certain things so that couldn't happen, because I was tired of the nurse telling me, oh, you can't make these changes in her pump. Like changing her carb ratio, right? Mm-hmm. Or changing her basal rate for a certain time of day. Like when she was at school, the nurse would tell me, oh, you can't do that because your DMMP says that you can only change it by this much and you're trying to change it by over that amount. And I was like, I can do what I want. I was always telling her that. I can do whatever I want. This is my daughter.
Right. I don't usually say stuff like this, Jessie, but America and all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm free here. Like, if I'm not hurting that kid, there's literally nothing anybody can say about how you're doing what you're doing with your child.
Right.
We certainly were. By the way, I later, as I calmed down and went back and spoke to her, she was trying to find out something that it wasn't even about. I was like, I'm like, I don't understand why you think this is okay. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't even anything like that. Like, you're trying to move her insulin to carb ratio to 1 to 15 or something. Mm-hmm. And the orders say it's 1 to 20, like that kind of thing. It wasn't even that. Are you telling me that the school nurse for your daughter had so many opinions about how to manage her insulin and did not want, or are you just telling me she didn't think you had the autonomy to make changes after it was written down?
Both. So she didn't want me to make any changes without having an updated diabetic management plan. So if I wanted to change her carb ratio or her basal rate for a certain time of day, because I was like, all right, so this, whatever day this is, it's just not working anymore, right? She needs more insulin. It is what it is. For snack time, she can't be a 1 to 10 anymore. She's got to go down to 1 to 6, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
She would say, well, you can't do that unless you have the doctor fill out and sign a new diabetic medical management plan. I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I want and I'm going to plug it into her pump.
Yeah, also, you got a little kid, she's growing, changing all the time. Like, these things are going to change. If you understand insulin, these things are going to change frequently, if not daily sometimes. I got to call the doctor every time.
Right.
Did you say that to her? I'm not
doing that.
Or did you just hit her with leave, like, mind your business?
No, I told her. I tried to come at it from a knowledgeable perspective and explain that to her. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I could lose my job. So I ended up going to our endo and just telling them, this is what I need you to specify on here. And she just checked a box on there that said, I think she added in an extra box because it wasn't there. She added in an extra box that said that the parent guardian can make whatever changes she wants to.
Yeah, that's the magic sentence in a 504 plan. Everyone should know that and have it in theirs. Here are all the rules. Here are all the numbers. But here's the sentence for you so the nurse doesn't feel like she's going to get in trouble, which, I obviously understand.
Yeah.
From the nurse position. But it's also in the middle of the day when you have 3 other kids and you're married and you're trying to, do whatever else you're doing. And, you don't need somebody stopping you every 5 seconds saying you can't do that, because that's all you hear.
Right.
What she should have said was, I understand that this is a good idea, or you think it's a good idea, but if I do that, I'm going against these written orders. We need to change these written orders so that I have more autonomy to listen to you. And then all done,
I would get so angry. I was up at the school multiple times a week because my daughter would always come home and be like, I got in trouble because I gave myself insulin, because I would text my daughter and say, let's say she was like 220. And I'm like, you're high, you need insulin. So I text her and I tell her to dose, and she gives herself insulin. And then she goes to the clinic at some point and the nurse sees that there's insulin on board and that it was dosed, from her pump. And then she yells at my daughter for doing that. And I'm like,
really yells at her, like raises her voice, or just chastises her? What are we talking about?
The way that my daughter explained it to me was that she would yell at her. She would say, you cannot do that. Mm-hmm. In an elevated voice. And, my daughter would say, my mom told me to. And she said, well, you have to listen to me at school. And then my daughter would get home and I'd say, you don't listen to that lady. You listen to me.
Hello, random lady who works at my school.
But we
can you imagine in any scenario, I send my kid somewhere, my 9-year-old somewhere, and a person feels comfortable telling them, don't listen to your parents?
Yeah, I know. I had a big issue with it. And so that's why last year, we actually got a new nurse after that. And she was super kind. We ended up loving her, but that's beside the point. But last year, I said, going into her school year, this was her 3rd grade school year, I said to her endo, hey, we're going to be done with the nurse situation and we're just going to manage ourselves. And she said, okay, if you think that she's ready, then I think that she's ready. And I said, okay, great. So we changed everything on her management plan to be all like that Charlie could do it all herself. She rocked 3rd grade doing that. She just wore an Apple Watch and kept her phone in her backpack. And every time I would text her, she would just do what I said. So she could dose when her blood sugar was high. If she was low, she was just staying in her classroom and drinking juice or having some fruit snacks at her desk.
Just what everyone else does that has diabetes.
Yeah. But they wouldn't even let her treat in the classroom before, even though her plan said it. Her nurse was just like, I'm still not comfortable with it, when she was in 2nd grade. And I'm like, I guess you don't understand. Like, we've been doing this for so long that she knows.
Yeah.
When I tell her, hey, your blood sugar's low, drink six sips of a juice box. That chick's going to drink 6 sips of a juice box.
Right.
I guess she just had a hard time. And I get it. We're at a new school this year, actually. And her nurses are freaking out because my daughter has so much independence, they said. They've never had a type 1 with so much independence. So her blood sugar was low yesterday after recess because I just figured out yesterday she has snack and then goes straight out to recess. Okay. So
a new school year, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So now we know that. So we're not going to be dosing accordingly. We're going to change our dosing strategy to accommodate for activity outside.
Right.
Whereas my daughter was like, oh, okay, I'm going to eat this protein bar and I'm going to dose for it. And then I'm going to go outside and play. And 52 double arrows down was about 15 minutes later. So they called me freaking out yesterday, the nurse. And I had already talked to Charlie and she had, told me I already drank half a juice box. I'm good. I'm chilling inside now. But they called me and they're like, hey, we're kind of freaking out here. We saw that her blood sugar was dropping. We just need to know, is she okay? We're going to go see her. And I'm like, she's fine. She's already treated. And then about 10 minutes later, they text me. They're like, we're sitting with her. She looks great. I'm like,
well, see, now that I think that's nice. I think that's great.
Yeah. I had no problem with it, of course. But it was just a completely different situation this year. They're like, hey, she has too much independence. We're not comfortable. We just want to put eyes on her. I'm like, She's okay. She'd tell me if she wasn't okay.
Go stare at her. That's fine. Waste your time.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I like that. 52 double hours down. I like the nurse going and looking for the kid. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No problem. But I said, hey, would it make y'all feel better if I just shot you a text message and said, I've talked to her, she's treated, you know?
Yeah, I'm
and
sure it would.
Yes, please keep us in the loop.
Good. See, you're going to end up building a nice relationship with them, and that's going to be good.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me something about, it's weird for me sometimes when I know you listen to the podcast, right? So when I hear you say something and I go, oh, I really like that idea. I don't know if it's a thought you heard from me and you're putting it into practice, or if it's something you came up with on your own. And as the podcast grows, I should start asking that more often. People are going to think I'm asking to like get credit, but I don't mean for that. So this idea of like the slow matriculation of knowledge and responsibility, I'm a lot about that. By the way, I just think that's a good parenting skill, not necessarily a diabetes thing. Over the years, I've taken a lot of crap from older type 1s. You know, when Arden was much, much younger, they'd be like, oh, well, you do everything and she doesn't understand it. And I'm like, no, she understands what we're doing. I'm just not like piling it on her. Also, I just interviewed a 36-year-old lady last week who sounds like she's imploding from the inside of her brain because, you know, when she was 8 years old, her parents were like, it's your disease, take care of it, and abandoned her basically. And now as an adult, she's still struggling and just told me a horrible story about she didn't pay attention to her blood sugar all through college. And like, you know, and I'm like, so, you know, it's like everything else. I think they went through something one way. They hear someone else doing it differently and they go, oh, wait, do you see? That's not going to work. And it worked exceedingly well for me. But is that where you got the idea, or is it just common sense to you?
No, I'd say it really came from seeing what happened to my brother. My brother was diagnosed at 9 years. He was 9 years old. It was on his 9th birthday that he was diagnosed. My parents didn't teach him anything. My mom.
Okay.
my mom, as far as diabetes goes.
Bill, this one's going to die.
My mom, there was so much responsibility put on him at 9 years old that it carried such a weight on him. And it has really, really caused a lot of problems for him. It's a heavy weight for a kid to carry. And I can't imagine having my daughter who is type 1, having her carry that burden herself. And so seeing the damage that it did to my brother, with all my mom did was really, she would pick up his prescription, she would drive him to his endocrinology appointments. But my brother didn't have a CGM back then. He had, a book, and he would just have to record his blood sugars. He'd test on a meter and write it down.
Right.
And he did get a pump. He went through a few pumps because he was a boy. So he broke a lot of pumps. I remember my mom really giving that responsibility to him. I really vividly remember him giving his own injections.
Really? Yeah.
And that was with like a syringe, not a pen.
Like the glass ones.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I saw the mental toll that it took on my brother. And with that, I've been like, okay, all right, how do I give her little chunks here and there to help her, have autonomy over her type 1 diabetes, to understand how insulin works, to understand how her body is working, and be able to manage it as she gets older, but also not overload her so that she's like stuck and needs therapy.
Right. Great.
So
perfect. And you're doing that. And what are you finding to be the key to this?
I feel like we have like a goal or at least me, I have a goal every year of like, okay, I'm going to give her a little bit more independence here. Right. So this year, last year, for example, it was, we're going to ditch the nurse at school. Okay. And we're going to manage together. I will tell you what to do, but you have the freedom to, hey, if it pops up on your watch and says low blood glucose, you know what to do.
Right.
You know to treat it, and just shoot me a text and say, I treated my blood sugar. And she did that. This year, it's, okay, I want you to start calculating your carbs or making educated guesses.
Right.
If you don't have if you're eating something and it doesn't have a package with carbs on it, okay, let's make an educated guess. You've been diabetic for long enough now that you should be able to look at a plate of food and be like, that looks about 40 carbs. That looks about 25 carbs, because and I've been trying to teach her. I taught her what a Rolodex was recently.
Okay.
I said, that's what your brain is becoming. So you need to allow your brain to become a Rolodex.
Right.
So just you're adding to it all the time. So a large apple is going to be about 25 to 27 carbs. Okay, great. You know that. Plug that in. It stays in the Rolodex of your brain. You know how to dose for a banana because you eat bananas, all these things, right? So I'm like, this year, her goal is being able to look at a plate of food and be able to make an educated guess about how many carbs are on that plate, dose for it, see how it goes.
Nice. Do you guys practice over the summertime?
Yes, all the time. And actually, I just switched her. She's going to a hybrid school now, so she's only in school 2 days a week, and she's homeschooling 3 days a week. So that gives us even more time to work on that.
That's awesome. Good for you.
And another thing, actually, she added this one on this year, was changing her Dexcom herself.
Okay.
She wanted to be able to change that herself and put one on. And she has put her last 2 Dexcoms on herself because normally I do that for her. And she's on the T-Slim. Mm-hmm. So I fill her cartridges and all that. And for the last 3 years, she's been watching me do it. And, we try to create fun videos and she's that age range who they love like TikTok and all that stuff.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a TikTok, but she will make videos on her phone of herself doing stuff.
Oh my God.
And save them for herself.
Jessie, anybody who thinks that's crazy, if you look at Arden's iCloud folder from like her lifetime, it is just them making videos from the time they were little with their friends.
Oh yeah. I did the same thing as a kid. I just wasn't doing them about type 1 diabetes.
But you had a cell phone when you were a kid?
I had a cell phone at 11 years old.
How old are you?
What year is it? 24? I'm 34.
Oh, look at you. You're so much younger than me. It's amazing.
Yes,
I just
I'm a
didn't.
baby.
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, I was like, it's the 4 kids thing that threw me off.
It's the 4 kids. Yeah. No, I've got 4 kids and I'm 34 and I definitely don't feel 34. I'll tell you that.
You feel older?
Yes.
How old were you when you had your first? 24?
I can do basic math.
You're like, I could do math before I got pregnant 4 times.
Yeah. I was 23. I was 23 when he was born. I had just turned 23 and then 2 weeks later he was born.
Wow. How old were you when you got married?
Yeah. 21.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a baby. So now I look at 21-year-olds and I'm like, you guys probably should.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Do it.
How did your husband trick you into that? Do you remember?
He says that I tricked him.
Oh, well, that's also possible.
He says I tricked him, that I acted like I was going to be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm not going to go there. No, he does say that I tricked him into marrying me, but that's it. That's got to be a joke.
Are you guys the same age?
He's the one who, he's 1 year old. We have the same birthday. He's 1 year older.
Oh, wow. Look, even a person your own age, that's crazy.
Yeah, but he's the one who proposed to me. So I'm not the one who asked him.
He's the one who proposed to you after you said, I'm leaving. And he was like, wait, where's this girl going?
No, he actually, funny story is we only dated for 4 months before he proposed.
How long were you engaged?
5 months.
Oh, wow.
So, super quick.
You were married in under a year of knowing each other at 22 and 21.
Yes. Yes.
And you're still married?
We're still married. Yeah. We're about to celebrate 13 years.
Interesting. Good for you. Look at that.
Yeah. And we have 4 kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now no one's going anywhere. Nobody can afford to leave. Yeah. I mean, really?
No.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Even if you wanted to, you'd be like, I don't know how to accomplish this.
I know. And it's been crazy because he didn't know anything about type 1 diabetes at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then our daughter was diagnosed and he does, we've had some hard times where we have, I felt like I carry more of the burden. I say burden, but it is a burden. I'm not going to lie. It's a burden. Type 1 diabetes is not like a cakewalk.
Sure.
But now I feel like we have a good system going now that, you've been married for a long time, right?
I think my 28th anniversary was the other day. Was it 28?
Okay, yeah. So, you got to communicate to make this thing work. And so I remember at one point just being like, hey, listen, I feel like I'm doing all of this and I need help because I can't carry the weight of it myself and I need help. So yeah, we share duties of, like changing her sites and stuff like that. And he's got a calendar in his phone now to make sure that we change it, just like a reminder that pops up every 48 hours to change it.
Yeah.
And all that. So we share it very well now. But I would say so I stay home with the kids and, he's got a full-time job. So during the day, when he's working, it's me. Like I'm managing her type 1 all day long.
Mm-hmm.
she's going to come to me first before she would ever go to him.
Okay. And do you find that he's learning about it in a meaningful way, or is he
well,
just...
I had him at the beginning. I was like, hey, I need you to listen to this podcast. I need you to understand, because I was trying to implement all these new things.
Yeah.
And that I had learned from your podcast. And I'm like, it's going to make way more sense if you just listen to this podcast and you hear what they're talking about. Like the pro tip series, I had him go through the pro tip series.
Yeah.
And even just defining diabetes, because I'm like, we need to be on the same page so we can manage this together.
I can't be saying words you don't understand. Yeah.
I've even left him and gone out of town and he's got it.
Oh, well, look at this. He's trainable. Yeah. This is lovely.
He's great.
Tell me, how did he react when you said, I need you to listen to a podcast?
He just said, okay, can you put it on my phone? That was it.
Jessie, I'm going to say something that's going to sound weird here, but hopefully it won't. You were on video for 5 minutes when we first started, so I now know what you look like. You're pretty. You could probably get boys to do what you want. I would have trouble. I tell my wife to do something. She looks at me and she goes, nah, I don't think I'm doing that. She doesn't look at me and go, oh, I don't want him to leave. So I guess I'm going to accomplish something. You're working at an unfair advantage is what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you.
No, please. Because in my mind, you say, go listen to a podcast, and he walks out in the garage and like just screams into a towel. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this.
He cares about her. And so he was like, all right, I got to learn. He's always looking to learn and grow too. So he's like, all right, if this is what you think will help. And sure enough, it does. And what's been very difficult is getting my brother to listen to the podcast.
That's tougher. He's had diabetes a long time.
27 years. No. Okay, I can do basic math.
You said he was 36, right?
He's 36,
and he was diagnosed when he was 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's excellent. I remembered all that, which I'm super impressed by.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I did do the math right.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I'm homeschooling my daughter 3 days a week, so best of luck to me.
Mommy, what was the revolution? I don't know. Go ask the computer.
I know. I'm like, hey, I just recently told her, I'm like, hey, you've got a calculator on your insulin pump. You don't have to add it up in your head. Just push, okay, this package says 25 carbs, press the plus button. This package says 30 carbs, press the plus button. Boom, you got it. It does it for you.
I'm going to tell you something. In about a month, when Apple releases the new Siri, it's basically going to be AI. You're going to just be able to ask it like math, and it's finally going to, how everyone wishes Siri worked, but it doesn't?
Yeah. Oh, I hate Siri.
It's going to work like that now.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So
good.
Right now, if you ask it to add something up, it takes you to a website. And you're like, what in hell are you doing?
Yeah,
okay.
I cannot stand Siri. I don't know. I have a huge problem with it. It never listens to me when I need it to listen to me. And it doesn't ever, it's always like, when I tell it something, like, you're not listening.
It's going to be completely different very soon. So
good.
So T-Slim, you said, Control IQ?
Yep. Yeah, Control IQ. I love it. Love it. And
how did you figure out, you obviously started with some sort of injections. You didn't stay with it very long. Did you go right to T-Slim? Was that your first pump?
No, we did the Omnipod.
Mm-hmm.
She has a pretty severe allergy to adhesive.
Okay.
Having that pod, it was not working for her.
Too much for her.
And then on top of that, we have a pool in our backyard and she was losing pods every single day. They just wouldn't stay on. We had, I tried everything to keep those things on. And they would just fall off. And I said, all right, forget it. I think we had them for 4 to 5 weeks. And then
I was going to say, isn't it funny, people's skin types?
Yes.
Because we just got back from, like I said, we were on a vacation. It was a beach vacation. Arden does not wear overpatches on her Omnipods. And she didn't have one thing. And she was literally just in the ocean constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Not one pod fell off, not one CGM fell off. Her skin just works well with the adhesive. And some people just don't,
Yeah, I do. Where do y'all are up north, right?
I live in New Jersey, but we were we were vacationing in the Caribbean, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So never mind. I was going to say, well, maybe it's the humidity because I live in a pretty humid environment, but yeah,
it was super humid.
It wasn't working for her and I was tired of it. So we switched over to the T-Slim. Mm-hmm. And have not gone back. She's about to get a new pump.
Okay. She's had it almost 4 years. I'm thrilled it's working for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you at in your mind about the handoff of information? Do you bother yourself with an idea of at this age, I'll be less involved and at this age I won't be involved? Or are you just watching it and just letting it be what it is?
I feel like I listened to a podcast that you talked about this. This was before Arden was leaving for college. I remember listening to this one. I kind of took that to heart. My goal is by the time she's ready to leave for college is for her to be in a good place to be able to manage without me. And that's when I can be less hands-on. But as long as she's, and I've told her this too, as long as you're under the, like our roof, and as long as you need me, I'll be there for you and I can help you, but you need to start owning this as your own because unfortunately it's not going away. I'm a realist, and I'm straightforward with my kids. So, with her, I'm telling her, listen, I wish there was a cure for type 1 diabetes. There isn't. Do I think there will be? Who knows? At this point, you need to have it in your brain like, this isn't going away. This is my life and I need to learn how to manage it. So let's take little bits year by year to get you to a point where you don't need me and you can make decisions. Is that going to be 16 years old for her? I don't know. Is it going to be 18? I hope so.
Yeah.
But I do think that I will always have to at least help her in the nighttime, like calling her and stuff.
I still pay attention at night at college. Like I don't have to be as involved and Arden's very good at it, but there's stuff that happens. Like people get sick, Arden's sick right now. Just tonsillitis and it's terrible. And she's been sitting on the same chair in our living room for 3 days. And she slept there the last 2 nights. She can't even pull her ass up to go upstairs to go to bed. If she wasn't home right now, if she was at college, she'd still be taking care of her diabetes. And last night, her insulin needs have been, very commiserate with fevers and, and being ill and everything. She clearly has some sort of a virus happening. I texted her last night, like 11:30. I was like, hey, I think you should test right here. Like, I think this is a time where I feel like you need a pretty big bolus. It's getting late at night. Let's make sure that this number is super accurate before you make this next bolus. Can you test? And she goes, I don't have my stuff with me. And I went, okay, I'll get it. Because she's literally having trouble standing up and moving around and everything. So I said, where's your bag? She carries this little bag in her purse, has her meter and Gvoke Hypo pen in it, stuff like that. Let me get my text out so I can tell you what she said. Oh, where is your green bag? I don't know, man. What I got from that was, dude, I'm sick. Like, and just because you have diabetes doesn't mean you don't get sick and have that feeling of like, I don't want to do this. Yeah, right. She's going to be okay. There will be a day where you're not involved in Charlie's life. By the way, I can't.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my brother, he takes care of himself when he's sick and stuff like that. But I think it's always helpful to have extra eyes, and, like he has his wife who follows him. But
you also alluded to the fact that he maybe could be helping himself more than he is, right?
No, he has great management, but he has been diabetic for so long that he's like, I know all there is to know. I know my body.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to know anymore. It's like, I got this. He's like that Russian guy who was shooting at the Olympics. He's like walking out there with nothing.
Is he really having those outcomes?
It's been an interesting last 2 years of diabetes for my brother because he was diagnosed also with type 2 as well. So he's now on a GLP.
Oh, okay.
And it has taken over a year to find the right one that works for him and dosage and stuff like that. So, he did a whole year of like titrating a certain GLP that wasn't doing anything. And then he finally, I did convince him to, hey, maybe you need a different endocrinologist who will listen to you. And so he switched endocrinologists and that endocrinologist put him on a different GLP and now he's doing great. His insulin needs have dropped dramatically. Blood sugar is now chilling around closer to 75 to 120. He has hardly any highs.
That's awesome. I'm glad for him.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, not that this means anything, but Turkish.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And this will be 6 months later. So you're referring to the guy in what were they using? Like
airsoft,
like handguns, right? He just rolls up like everyone else has like
protective
wear on and all this stuff.
Yeah.
He just kind of rolls up and pulls his gun out like Dirty Harry. And he's like, get me a medal. It was pretty awesome.
That was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of good stuff from the Olympics.
You know who I feel badly for? The female Australian break dancer. I'm starting to feel bad for her, actually. Yeah.
No, she's my favorite. They knew what they were doing. They're like, we're going to send this 40-something-year-old professor to be a break dancer for our country.
I think they dropped it from the Olympics already, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, they were like, all right, we're not doing this again. Sorry.
That's a bummer because it made for really good TV. I mean, I was like, wow, I can watch dance-offs, you know?
I love she went home and did it again, like out on the street. Yeah. They did a video of her and put it online. I was like, oh my God, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Like, maybe
she's my favorite.
Maybe you're making sense. Maybe they're all in on the joke. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because little weird hand motions and body stylings. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing this. This looks like me doing this. Like, what do you?
I know. I'm definitely going to take some of her moves to my son's middle school dance when I chaperone it and see if I can embarrass him a little bit.
I like when she lays down to spin, she almost stops moving. The only thing breakdancing about that is she looks like she's going to break her hip. Very ridiculous. Anyway, is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have?
Not that I can think of. What was the other subject I told you about?
You blended advocating for yourself and not letting school nurses tell you what to do, and you about passing off. So you kind of blended them together when you started talking about them.
Yeah. I think we covered it.
Let me just ask you a couple other questions then real quick. Because we know your brother has type 1, but do you have any other autoimmune things, or does your husband or people on either side of your families?
I have Hashimoto's. So, and then I did tell you I was one of 5. Mm-hmm. So 4 out of 5 of us have hypothyroidism.
Okay.
And both of my parents, hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was just talking to my oldest brother the other day, and he was like, I am the only one without hypothyroidism. This is, I'm just watching it,
He's like, it's coming, I think,
I told him, but he's 8 years older than me. And I'm like, man, I bet you have it and you just don't know.
I was going to say, why would he not take a look?
He has, but I did tell him, I said, you need to, he said he's just been getting blood work done at his primary care physician's office. And I said, they're just testing your TSH levels. You need to go in and
they're going to say like up to an 8 is okay or something like that.
Correct. Yeah. And so I was explaining that to him the other day about, you need to check your T4, your T3, and then you need to see where your TSH levels are, because, you could be, they're within range, within normal range is such a broad range.
Yeah.
And I can have my TSH be within range and not feel optimally.
Right.
So
does he have symptoms?
That could be the problem for you as well. And then if they're not checking your T4, your free T4, they're not checking those things.
Yeah.
You're not getting the full picture.
Yeah, you want a full panel. I have a family friend I'm trying to help now, and she's younger, so she's, running into doctors who aren't helping her, and she's not real good at, arguing back yet, kind of walking her through it. But, she has 5, 6 hypothyroid symptoms, and they're changing her life, like, significantly. Her TSH comes back at like over 5, and the doctor's like, that's normal. And I was like, that's not normal.
Right.
And she said, oh, she retested it and it came back at 2.5. And I'm like, yeah, that's still not normal.
Right.
And then they tested it again and it was 4.4. And I was like, yeah, you need like thyroid medication.
Right.
And the doctor's like, no, you don't. This is all very normal. And I'm like, I don't know what world you think this is normal. Like,
I know. I told my brother, hey, this other one, I was like, hey, you got to go see an endocrinologist. I'm not hating on the medical community at all. He doesn't specialize in that. Your primary care physician does not specialize in this. So you need to go see somebody who can look at a thyroid panel, know what labs to pull, right?
Yeah,
and then
be thoughtful about it.
Know what they're talking about, because they're focused on
We
it.
need these doctors to be more specific about these tests, because we need them to do more. Like, I'm telling you, I'm going to be right about this. In the next handful of years, as GLP medications become available for type 1s and they become available in vials, we're going to need doctors to tell you, hey, listen, back in the day when this all started, the lowest dose of this you could get was 2.5 milligrams, but that's too much for you. Like, like we need you to do 1 milligram, and I don't want you to do it every 7 days. I want you to do it every, 5 days, 10 days, whatever ends up optimally working for you. But if you look at how little doctors are valuable in dosing your insulin, then you're going to realize how invaluable most of them are going to be with your thyroid medication. And then with this, I mean, this GLP thing, like Arden has insane benefits from it, but the lowest dose is too much for her.
Right.
So we're literally in the middle of figuring all of that out. And I have a I think I know what to do, but we're waiting a few days for her doctor's appointment where we're going to go sit down with her doctor and discuss all this because she needs it, but not that much. She lost too much weight and she had too hard of a time eating. And so where most people just go, oh, well, it didn't work because I can't eat. I'm like, no. 9 out of the 10 things we wanted out of this worked great. One of the things didn't work. Like, let's change the dose.
Yeah.
And luckily we have a doctor who will be like, yeah, that's sensible. Let's figure that out.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to find doctor. I feel like you have to find the right doctor who's willing to work with you. Like I said earlier, our endo works with us, and not, we're on the same team instead of, fighting against us. And I've had endos who are like, I know more than you. And there's been times where I'm like, no, I know more than you when it comes to this
also,
subject.
why does it matter? Like, let's just work together and figure it out.
Yeah. I just remember arguing with we're arguing about technology and stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not how this insulin pump works.
Also, forget doctors. Good luck finding people that can think through complex things in any walk of life. Not just your doctor. You know what I mean? We have a greater expectation for them, but they're just people. It's not.
Right.
You know what I mean? So anyway.
Right. And then, I feel like they don't get the pump training that they need. They pass that off to their diabetes educators in their office if they have them. But I feel like my endocrinologist should be knowledgeable about the pump that is being, my daughter's using. And my new one is.
Yeah, it doesn't seem crazy to ask for that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Could you know how to use the pump? My new one is.
She's great.
Would you mind taking 15 minutes and teaching yourself this?
Yeah, our next pump is going to be the Mobi. I'm super excited.
Oh, yeah.
We tried to get the Mobi. Our endo told us like 6 months ago, she's like, oh, okay, their Tandem's rolling out this new thing this summer where if you have the X2 and you want to upgrade to the Mobi, they will do that for you at no charge. And then, the following year, they'll, you get charged for it or whatever.
Oh.
Some upgrade program, something like that. Well, I called and I submitted the forms for it. And then they called me back and they're like, oh, you can't do that. You have to be 12 months from you have to have at least 12 months left of your warranty to upgrade.
Okay.
And you have 11 months. So sorry, you're denied. I'm like, are you serious?
As long as we're all making sense, that's fine.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, that was, it took you 3 weeks to process the paperwork. So let's backdate it.
Well, why don't you just take 4 more weeks and give it to me?
Yeah, I know. So
do you think you'll end up with it though? You'll end up with it eventually.
Yeah, she's going to get it in the new year. So I'm super excited. It's the same system as the X2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the same algorithm.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. Again, anytime people get things that work good for them, I think having those choices is a minimum of what we should be asking for. So,
right.
Absolutely fantastic. All right. Well, Jess, you were great. I appreciate you doing this with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was so fun.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah. I loved it. And I feel like I could talk diabetes forever. And I feel like I don't know if you remember this, the first time I ever talked to you, you talked to me on the phone shortly after my daughter was diagnosed. I don't know there's no way you remember this, but I remember this. And she had just been diagnosed and I had reached out to you and you were super kind and you were like, can I just call you? It'll make more sense if I call you. And you talked to me on the phone. And that's when I first realized too, because her endo at the time had said, oh, I want you to treat her blood sugar if it's 100 or below.
Yeah.
And when I talked to you, you're like, 100's fine. And I was like, oh, it is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember it. And you were super kind.
Well, first of all, I'm fantastic. And I think everyone knows that. You didn't have to bring it up. But I don't remember. I apologize for not remembering. But I think what I hear you say is that if everybody could just talk to me for a half an hour when they were diagnosed, they'd be okay.
Yep. You put me on the right track. And it was great. And I'm super thankful for your podcast and I tell everybody I know that's been diagnosed, I'm like, you've got to just listen to this. Like, I could talk your ear off, but just listen to this. It'll be easier.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that very much. And it's funny. I was trying to be funny, but at the same time, I do think that I have it down to a brisk 40 minutes that I can like put you on the right path.
Yeah, I think you and I talked on the phone for 20 minutes, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I feel way better about this situation.
Good. I'm glad. All right. That's excellent. Well, thanks so much for doing this with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Hold on 1 second for me. I'd like to thank the Eversense 365 for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast and remind you that if you want the only sensor that gets inserted once a year and not every 14 days, you want the Eversense CGM. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. 1 year, 1 CGM. Guys, you want to go for a walk with Touched by Type 1 in Orlando? You can do it, and you can have a great time, meet a lot of wonderful people. touchedbytype1.org. Go to the Programs tab, click on Steps to a Cure, and get yourself registered right now for the beautiful walk that's coming up on March 8th in Orlando. touchedbytype1.org. Earlier, you heard me talking about Blue Circle Health, the free virtual Type 1 diabetes care, education, and support program for adults. And I know it sounds too good to be true, but I swear it's real. Thanks to funding from a big T1D philanthropy group, Blue Circle Health doesn't bill your insurance or charge you a cent. In other words, it's free. They can help you with things like carb counting, insurance navigation, diabetes technology, insulin adjustments, peer support, prescription assistance, and much more. So if you're tired of waiting 9 months to get in with your endo or your educator, you can get an appointment with their team within 1 to 2 weeks. This program is showing what T1D care can and should look like. Blue Circle Health is currently available in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, and Missouri. If you live in one of those states, go to bluecirclehealth.org to sign up today. The link is in the show notes. And please help me to spread the word. Blue Circle Health had to buy an ad because people don't believe that it's free. But it is. They're trying to give you free care. If you live in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, and Missouri, it's ready to go right now. And like I said, they're adding states so quickly in 2025 that you want to follow them on social media at Blue Circle Health. And you can also keep checking bluecirclehealth.org to see when your free care is available to you. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate your loyalty and listenership. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, the After Dark collection from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From drugs to depression, self-harm, trauma, addiction, and so much more. Go to juiceboxpodcast.com, up in the menu, and click on After Dark. There you'll see a full list of all of the After Dark episodes. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. wrongwayrecording.com.